Have you ever noticed how the world often misunderstands a woman who enjoys being alone? They call her distant, cold, or antisocial, but they never realize that behind her quiet presence lies unmatched strength. There's something powerful about a woman who doesn't fear her own company, who can sit in silence and still feel whole. She doesn't chase noise to feel alive, nor does she need a crowd to feel validated. Her peace is her power, her home is her sanctuary, and her solitude is her secret weapon. While others seek distractions, she seeks depth. While the world scrolls endlessly for attention, she builds herself in stillness. Because when a woman learns to love her own presence, no one can ever make her feel alone again. Being alone is one of the most misunderstood states of being. People see a woman sitting quietly at home and think she must be lonely. But what they don't see is that she's at peace. She's not hiding from the world. She's connecting to herself. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a cry for connection. Solitude is a choice to recharge. The woman who chooses solitude doesn't escape life. She embraces it differently. She understands that not every moment needs to be shared, not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every presence needs to be filled. Her silence doesn't mean emptiness, it means awareness. She listens more deeply, feels more clearly, and thinks more intentionally. When a woman becomes comfortable being alone, she discovers a side of herself that the noise of the world often drowns out. She learns to sit with her emotions instead of running from them, to face her fears instead of masking them, and to hear her own voice above the constant chatter of opinions. In solitude, she finds truth. It's where she figures out what truly matters, not what society tells her to care about, but what her soul quietly demands. This kind of understanding can't be given by anyone else. It comes only from stillness, from listening to the echo of your own thoughts without judgment. There's a quiet strength that grows in a woman who no longer needs validation to feel valued. She doesn't measure her worth by who calls, who texts, or who shows up. Her validation comes from knowing who she is and what she stands for. When she walks into a room, her confidence doesn't come from attention. It comes from inner peace. Because once you've found comfort in your own company, the world can no longer shake your foundation. People can leave, opinions can shift, life can change, but her sense of self remains untouched. That is the kind of strength solitude builds. It takes courage to sit in your own presence without distractions. It's easier to keep busy, to surround yourself with people, to fill your time with noise. But the brave ones, the women who choose to stay home, reflect, read, think, and breathe, they're doing the real work. They're building emotional discipline, mental clarity, and spiritual depth. They're learning to manage their thoughts before their thoughts manage them. And when they step back into the world, they move differently. They don't react to chaos, they respond with calm, they don't follow the crowd, they follow their purpose. So, to the woman who likes to be alone at home, don't let the world make you feel small for that. You are not lonely, you are aligned. You are not isolating, you are investing in yourself. The quiet moments you spend in solitude are not empty. They are sacred. They are shaping you into the kind of woman who doesn't need the world to complete her because she has already found completeness within herself. Strength in silence is a power that few understand, yet those who possess it never need to explain it. A woman who enjoys her solitude doesn't look for approval in the eyes of others because her confidence doesn't come from applause. It comes from awareness. She doesn't speak to be heard. She speaks when it matters. In a world where everyone is racing to prove something, she chooses to pause, to listen, to observe. Her silence isn't a lack of words. It's a form of control. It's knowing that not everything deserves a reaction, and not every situation requires her energy. She has learned that strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. It's the calm tone in chaos, the composed mind in confrontation, the gentle voice that doesn't need to shout to be powerful. A woman who finds peace in silence understands that real validation cannot be borrowed. It must be built. She knows that confidence doesn't come from compliments but from consistency. From doing the work when no one is watching, from showing up for herself when no one else does. She doesn't chase recognition because she has already recognized her own worth. She doesn't need to announce her growth. It shows in her patience, her presence, and her poise. Every time she chooses silence over reaction, she's not avoiding conflict, she's mastering herself. That kind of discipline is rare, and it can only come from within. Her silence is not weakness, it's strategy. She knows how to read the energy of a room without saying a word. She knows when to walk away instead of proving a point, and she knows that real power often lies in restraint. When others get lost in gossip, noise, or judgment, she remains focused. Her stillness unsettles people who thrive on chaos because they cannot pull her into their storm. Instead, she stays grounded in her peace, creating an invisible boundary that protects her from emotional exhaustion. That boundary isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. She has learned that not everyone deserves access to her time, and not every argument deserves her voice. Strength in silence also means understanding when to speak and how to use words with intention. When she does speak, her words carry weight because they are not scattered. They are chosen. She knows that true influence doesn't come from volume, but from clarity. She leads not through domination, but through calm authority. She commands attention not by demanding it, but by embodying it. Her silence is the space where her thoughts become sharper, her emotions more balanced, and her intuition stronger. So when she sits quietly, she's not retreating from the world, she's realigning with herself. Her silence is her reset. It's where she recharges, reflects, and rebuilds. She doesn't need anyone to tell her who she is because she already knows. She has found validation not through approval, but through acceptance of herself, her journey, and her strength. That's the kind of woman silence creates: steady, self-assured, and unshakably strong. The art of self-mastery begins in moments when no one is watching. It's in the quiet mornings when she sits with her coffee, lost in thought, or in the late-night hours when the world sleeps and her mind awakens with clarity. Solitude becomes her training ground, not a place of isolation, but a sacred space where she learns to understand herself deeply. She begins to observe her emotions without letting them control her. Instead of reacting impulsively, she starts responding consciously. Every time she chooses calm over chaos, focus over distraction, and purpose over pressure, she sharpens her inner strength. This mastery doesn't happen overnight. It's built in silence, through countless small moments of discipline that no one ever sees. Being alone teaches her that emotions are not enemies, but signals. When anger arises, she doesn't suppress it. She studies it. When fear appears, she doesn't run, she listens. She learns that control isn't about ignoring how she feels, but understanding why she feels it. Through this awareness, she gains the power to redirect her energy toward growth rather than reaction. She stops allowing temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. That's the beauty of solitude. It gives her the time and space to meet herself without masks, without performance, without pressure. And in those moments, she realizes how powerful she truly is when she is not seeking anyone else's approval. Her thoughts become sharper as she spends time alone. She begins to filter what truly matters and what doesn't deserve space in her mind. The endless noise of opinions, expectations, and comparisons starts to fade. She learns that her mind can either be her prison or her weapon, and she chooses to make it her greatest ally. She cultivates discipline, gratitude, and focus, not because someone tells her to, but because she feels the peace that comes from mental order. She learns to redirect her focus from what she can't control to what she can build. Each day alone becomes an exercise in patience and awareness, shaping her into someone who leads herself before leading others. In solitude, she also discovers her purpose. Without the distractions of the outside world, she begins to hear her inner voice, the one that whispers her true desires, her passions, and her direction. She starts to align her actions with her values. She realizes that her purpose isn't something she needs to find in others. It's something she must uncover within herself. And as she practices self-mastery, she becomes unshakable. Her peace no longer depends on circumstances. It depends on her mindset. She understands that power is not about control over others, but control over herself. So, when a woman learns the art of self-mastery through solitude, she becomes unstoppable. She doesn't need to chase fulfillment. She creates it. She doesn't need to prove strength. She embodies it. Her home becomes her temple, her solitude her teacher, and her peace her proof that she has mastered the most important relationship of all, the one with herself. Peace is a power move that only a few truly understand. In a world that glorifies loudness, quick reactions, and constant confrontation, it takes strength to choose calm over chaos. The woman who prefers peace isn't avoiding problems. She's choosing her battles wisely. She understands that not everything deserves her reaction, not every insult deserves her attention, and not every situation needs her presence. Her peace is not a sign of surrender. It's a sign of control. It's knowing that her energy is precious, and she refuses to waste it on things that don't serve her growth. She's learned that calmness is not a weakness. It's emotional discipline, and it gives her more power than anger ever could. When she chooses peace, she's not backing away, she's rising above. She understands that chaos only thrives when she feeds it, and silence often speaks louder than any argument. She doesn't need to prove who she is to anyone. She knows that staying composed under pressure is a strength that can't be faked. Peace allows her to stay focused when others lose direction. It keeps her centered when life tries to pull her apart. She knows her reaction can either escalate the problem or dissolve it, and she always chooses the option that protects her energy. That kind of restraint comes from wisdom, not weakness. It's emotional maturity, the kind that comes only through experience and self-awareness. Peace gives her clarity. It's the space between reaction and response where she finds her true power. When she's calm, she can think clearly. She can make decisions that align with her values rather than her emotions. She learns that every argument she walks away from isn't a loss. It's a victory for her inner stability. Every time she chooses silence over drama, she's teaching the world how to treat her. People notice that she doesn't get easily shaken, that she handles conflict with grace, and that she moves through challenges without losing her center. That's what real power looks like, the kind that doesn't need to be displayed to be felt. Peace also means choosing herself. It's the act of stepping back when the world demands too much and remembering that she doesn't owe anyone constant access to her energy. She creates boundaries, not because she's cold, but because she's wise enough to know her worth. She knows that peace cannot exist where she constantly sacrifices her mental or emotional well-being. So she protects it fiercely, like a treasure. Her home becomes a space where calm lives, where she can breathe, think, and reset without the noise of the outside world. That sacred stillness is what keeps her strong when others crumble. So, when she chooses peace, she's not choosing the easy way out. She's choosing the higher road. She's not avoiding life, she's mastering it. Her peace is her armor, her strength, and her strategy. She knows that chaos will always exist, but as long as she controls her response, she controls the outcome. And that's the quiet truth about power. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply breathes, smiles, and walks away. Energy is one of the most valuable things a person can own, yet it's often the first thing people give away without realizing its worth. A woman who has learned the importance of her energy guards it like her life depends on it, because in a way, it does. She understands that everything around her carries energy: people, conversations, environments, and even her own thoughts. That's why she's careful about what she allows into her space. Not everyone deserves her time. Not everyone earns the right to know her mind. And not everyone is entitled to her presence. Protecting her energy doesn't make her cold, it makes her conscious. It means she's learned that peace is not just about what you invite into your life. It's also about what you refuse to tolerate. There comes a point when she realizes that being available to everyone drains her, and she starts to pull back. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. She no longer feels guilty for saying no. She no longer feels the need to explain why she's unavailable or why she prefers to stay home instead of going out. Her solitude becomes her filter. She begins to notice how some people lift her while others leave her heavy. She pays attention to how certain conversations inspire her while others exhaust her. It's not selfishness, it's self-preservation. She has understood that energy is currency, and she's no longer willing to spend it on things that don't bring her peace or purpose. She becomes selective, intentional, and protective, not because she's afraid of others, but because she respects herself. The world often tells women to be endlessly giving, endlessly available, endlessly kind, but she's learned that boundaries are not barriers, they're shields. She knows that kindness without boundaries leads to burnout, and empathy without limits becomes exhaustion. So she creates her own emotional perimeter, one that only allows in what aligns with her values and vision. Her silence, her distance, her detachment, they're not signs of indifference, they're signs of growth. They're how she maintains her balance in a world that constantly tries to pull her in 100 directions. Protecting her energy also means protecting her mind. She's mindful of what she consumes, the news she reads, the people she follows, the voices she listens to. She understands that what she feeds her mind becomes what she feels. So she replaces noise with knowledge, distraction with discipline, and negativity with gratitude. She's not trying to escape the world. She's simply choosing to exist in it without losing herself. And that takes strength. It takes clarity. It takes courage to walk away from people, habits, or situations that once felt familiar, but now drain her spirit. So, when she guards her energy, she's not being difficult. She's being deliberate. She's building a life that feels peaceful, not performative. She's creating space for things that nourish her: creativity, purpose, stillness, and joy. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves her energy, and she's finally okay with that. She's learned that protecting her energy is the ultimate act of self-respect, and that's a power she'll never give away again. Resilience is not something you are born with. It's something you build when life tests you in silence. A woman who spends time alone learns that strength doesn't always come from survival. Sometimes, it comes from reflection. When she's alone, she faces her thoughts, her doubts, and her fears without the comfort of distraction. There's no audience to impress, no one to lean on, and no one to blame. It's just her and the truth. And in that truth, she learns that she is capable of more than she ever imagined. Every tear, every setback, every quiet night spent wondering what's next becomes a brick in the foundation of her resilience. She learns that breaking doesn't mean she's weak. It means she's growing, rebuilding, and becoming stronger than before. In solitude, she understands that resilience isn't about pretending to be fine. It's about accepting that pain is a part of the process. It's about standing back up even when no one is there to cheer for her. She learns to comfort herself, to motivate herself, and to guide herself through uncertainty. Those moments when she feels like giving up are the same moments that forge her endurance. No one sees her inner battles, the nights she doubts herself, the mornings she forces herself to keep going. But those unseen struggles are where her strength is born. Because resilience isn't loud. It's quiet, consistent, and deeply personal. It's the voice inside that whispers, "Keep going," even when everything else says stop. As she spends time alone, she starts to redefine what strength looks like. It's no longer about how much she can carry, but how gracefully she can rise. She doesn't need to prove her toughness to anyone. She simply lives it. When life knocks her down, she doesn't ask, "Why me?" anymore. Instead, she asks, "What is this teaching me?" That shift in perspective is the essence of resilience. Seeing pain not as punishment, but as preparation. Every challenge becomes a lesson. Every disappointment becomes redirection, and every ending becomes an opening for something new. Through solitude, she learns that the power to recover, to rebuild, and to rise has always been within her. Her solitude becomes her strength training. It teaches her patience, because healing doesn't happen overnight. It teaches her adaptability, because life rarely goes according to plan. And it teaches her emotional intelligence, the understanding that she can't control everything, but she can always control how she responds. She begins to move through life with quiet confidence, not because everything is easy, but because she trusts her ability to handle whatever comes. That's what makes her unshakable. She has faced herself, rebuilt herself, and learned that no external storm can destroy a woman who has already found calm within. So when people wonder how she stays so composed through chaos, they don't realize that her resilience was built in silence, in moments of solitude where she refused to surrender. Her strength isn't taught, it's earned. It's shaped by solitude, refined by pain, and anchored in peace. She doesn't just survive anymore, she evolves, and that is the kind of resilience no one can take away from her. Clarity through quiet is something only those who have truly embraced solitude can understand. The world today is filled with noise, voices telling us who to be, what to want, how to live. It's easy to lose yourself in all that chaos, to confuse movement with progress and noise with purpose. But when a woman learns to enjoy her own company, she finds something rare: stillness. In that stillness, the unnecessary fades away, and what truly matters begins to surface. Her home becomes more than just a space. It becomes her sanctuary, her command center, where she regains focus and direction. When she turns off the noise of the world, she begins to hear something far more powerful: her own voice. In quiet moments, she starts to see things clearly. She notices what drains her and what fills her. She begins to identify the difference between what's urgent and what's important. The constant noise of the world often blurs these lines, but solitude sharpens them again. The woman who allows herself to sit in silence discovers that clarity doesn't come from seeking more information. It comes from understanding herself better. She doesn't need the opinions of others to know her path. She needs time to listen to her intuition. And that inner voice, the one that so often gets drowned out by the world's noise, becomes her greatest guide when she finally makes space for it. Quiet teaches her patience. It slows her down long enough to observe life instead of rushing through it. In the silence of her home, she reflects on where she's been and where she's going. She looks at her dreams not as distant wishes, but as goals that require calm planning and steady steps. The stillness allows her to see her strengths and weaknesses with honesty, without judgment, and without pressure. She learns to align her actions with her values, to focus her energy on what truly moves her forward. It's in that space of calm reflection that she realizes clarity isn't about having all the answers. It's about understanding which questions truly matter. When she's alone and everything grows quiet, her thoughts begin to organize themselves. The noise that once overwhelmed her becomes irrelevant. She starts to recognize patterns in her thinking, the beliefs that serve her and the ones that hold her back. She gains the power to let go of what no longer belongs in her life. It might be people, habits, or even old versions of herself. Through quiet, she learns to release what's heavy so she can carry what's necessary. And once she finds that mental clarity, she moves through life with purpose. She's no longer scattered or uncertain. She's focused and intentional. Clarity through quiet is not just a state of mind, it's a way of living. It's the discipline of turning inward instead of outward, of seeking peace instead of attention. When the world shouts, she listens to the silence, because in that silence she finds direction, strength, and truth. And once a woman gains clarity through quiet, she stops chasing distractions and starts creating her destiny. One calm, confident, and deliberate step at a time. Self-reliance over approval is one of the most powerful transformations a woman can experience. It happens quietly, often after years of trying to meet expectations, please others, or explain herself to people who never really understood her. Then, one day, she simply stops needing their validation. She realizes that peace is not something anyone can hand her. It's something she builds herself. When she learns to rely on her own approval, she becomes free from judgment, comparison, and the exhausting chase for acceptance. It's not that she stops caring about people, she just stops living for their opinions. She starts living for her truth, her values, and her peace. In solitude, she learns what it means to trust herself completely. She stops asking for permission to rest, to dream, to change, or to choose differently. She understands that no one else can measure what's right for her life because no one else has lived it. People may question her choices, but she no longer feels the need to justify them. Her peace is proof enough. She becomes her own advisor, her own motivator, and her own comfort. When things get difficult, She doesn't look outward for rescue. She looks inward for resilience. That shift, from depending on approval to depending on self, is where true confidence begins. She stops waiting for others to see her worth. She knows who she is, and that's enough. The compliments are nice, but they're no longer her foundation. The criticism might sting, but it no longer defines her. Because once she's learned to approve of herself, no one else's opinion has the power to shake her. She has built her worth from within, through experiences, through growth, through understanding her own heart. She doesn't chase acceptance anymore. She carries it with her. Her peace doesn't need to be understood, and her silence doesn't need to be explained. The moment she stopped needing everyone to get her was the moment she finally got herself. Self-reliance also teaches her independence of thought. She begins to think for herself, to form opinions that are hers alone, not borrowed from others. She trusts her intuition, even when it leads her away from the crowd. She no longer feels anxious being different or misunderstood because she realizes that authenticity will always be misunderstood by those who fear individuality. She learns to be comfortable standing alone, not because she prefers isolation, but because she values integrity. She knows that it's better to walk alone in truth than to walk with others in pretense. Her self-reliance becomes her strength, a quiet, steady force that makes her untouchable in a world that constantly tries to shape her. So when people see her calm, they might mistake it for detachment. But what they're really seeing is a woman who's done explaining herself. A woman who knows that peace doesn't require validation. She doesn't need anyone to understand her path, her pace, or her choices. She simply lives them, fully, confidently, and without apology. That is self-reliance at its purest form, the courage to be your own source of peace, no matter who understands it or not. Growth isn't always visible. Sometimes it happens in the quiet moments when no one's watching, when there's no audience to applaud it or witness it. A woman who enjoys being alone understands that transformation doesn't need to be performed. It needs to be lived. When she spends time in solitude, she's not stagnant, she's evolving. While the world may think she's doing nothing, she's actually rebuilding herself piece by piece. She's healing from old wounds, learning from past mistakes, and creating new standards for her life. The progress she's making might not be obvious on the surface, but it's happening deep within her. It's the kind of growth that can't be seen yet, but one day it will speak for itself. She doesn't rush her evolution. She knows that real change takes time. Flowers don't bloom the moment they're planted, and neither does personal growth. She allows herself to take the quiet seasons seriously, the days that feel still, repetitive, or uncertain, because she knows that beneath that stillness, something powerful is forming. Her silence is not emptiness, it's preparation. She's teaching herself patience, discipline, and emotional maturity. She's building habits that no one notices, but that completely reshape her from the inside out. And while others chase instant gratification, she's learning to value progress that lasts. Growth to her isn't about becoming someone new overnight. It's about becoming more of who she's meant to be, one quiet decision at a time. Unseen growth is the most powerful kind because it doesn't depend on approval. She's not growing to impress anyone. She's growing because she wants to feel aligned with her own values. There's a peace that comes from knowing that you don't need recognition to evolve. The woman who embraces solitude doesn't post every victory, doesn't announce every change. She lets her results do the talking. She understands that some seasons are meant to be private, sacred even, where she's allowed to outgrow people, environments, and versions of herself without explanation. That privacy gives her strength because not everyone deserves a front row seat to her becoming. The world often underestimates the woman who steps back. They see her retreat and assume she's lost her direction. But she knows better. She knows that stepping back isn't a sign of defeat. It's a sign of strategy. She's recalibrating, redefining what she wants, and reclaiming her focus. She understands that every pause has purpose. When she finally steps forward again, she does so with clarity, confidence, and power that come only from inner work. People may call her changed, but she knows she was just busy growing in silence. That's the beauty of unseen growth. It's real, it's deep, and it's lasting. It doesn't demand attention, yet when it finally reveals itself, it changes everything. So when she walks back into the world after her quiet seasons, she doesn't need to announce her evolution. It shows in her presence, in her peace, in her energy. The world will wonder where her strength came from, but she'll know. It came from the days no one saw, the nights no one understood, and the silence that taught her how to grow without being seen. The quiet revolution begins when a woman realizes she doesn't need to be seen to be powerful. She's not loud, she's not seeking attention, and she's not trying to prove her worth to anyone. Her silence is intentional, her solitude is sacred, and her preparation is steady. While others are busy showing their lives to the world, she's busy building hers. She doesn't talk about her next move, she becomes it. Her revolution doesn't need noise because it's not about rebellion. It's about rebirth. It's the silent uprising of a woman who has chosen peace over pressure, purpose over perfection, and growth over approval. She knows that power built quietly is power that lasts. The woman who embraces solitude is not hiding. She's becoming. Every quiet moment she spends alone adds another layer of strength, another depth of understanding, another level of calm. She doesn't need the world to see her progress to know it's real. She knows it within herself, in the way her reactions have softened, her mind has cleared, and her spirit has steadied. She no longer craves validation because her confidence doesn't come from being recognized. It comes from being ready, and she's preparing, not for attention, but for alignment. Her silence is her strategy, her stillness is her foundation, and her patience is her weapon. This quiet revolution is not about defiance. It's about direction. It's about choosing to move with intention, not impulse. She's not competing with anyone. She's creating her own rhythm, her own timeline. The world might look at her and see stillness, but inside her, everything is shifting. She's letting go of old fears, outdated identities, and unnecessary attachments. She's learning to live from peace instead of proving from pain. And as she evolves quietly, she becomes unstoppable, not because she shouts her strength, but because she no longer doubts it. Her calm is her rebellion against a world addicted to noise. There's something extraordinary about a woman who rises without warning. She's the kind of force that surprises everyone, not because they didn't think she was capable, but because they underestimated the power of her silence. When she finally steps forward, she doesn't announce it. She simply arrives, prepared, grounded, and unshakable. People may wonder how she became so composed, so clear, so powerful, but they'll never understand the depth of the quiet that built her. Her revolution didn't happen on a stage. It happened in her heart. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving herself right. So when she walks into the world again, she carries the energy of someone who has rebuilt herself in silence. Her presence speaks where her words no longer need to. She doesn't chase anything anymore. Not approval, not control, not noise. She simply embodies everything she worked for when no one was watching. That is her quiet revolution. The rise of a woman who learned that her power doesn't need to be seen to be real. It only needs to be lived.